Chris's point about interoperability, really is huge, and I want to take another angle on the whole interoperability and standards. Today is Monday, and I go to a website with my browser, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow morning, I install a new version of that browser, or a different browser, and I expect that site to still work.
Mm.
And so there's a tension as we try to shift the platform. Right, because you're right, the browser is this powerful platform, right? It's not just a document renderer anymore between script and XML HTTP request. There are a lot of very powerful things you can build in it, right? Outlook Web Access, I think, is my favorite because I use it so much.
Sure.
And if you think about it, the platform behaves in a certain way. Now, you go and you want to make it more standards compliant. Well, the site that worked today, right, had better continue to work tomorrow. And so there's a whole compatibility challenge.
Absolutely.
that we get into, because pretty much people want both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Consumers want it to just work and to interoperate, and developers want it to just work and interoperate, and they're like, oh, this thing I wrote last week, it better keep working. And you spend a lot of your time wandering around these hallways trying to get the right solution in place to balance those.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we have a unique challenge because at the same time that a lot of web developers out there are clamoring for this interoperable, standards compliancy, at the very same time they're saying that, they're also designing and developing sites today that have to work in IE6 and IE5.5 and IE7,
Mm-hmm.
and because they have to do that, they have to hack around these problems. They have to make up for features that may not be there yet in those versions of IE. They have to hack around the bugs that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, effectively they expect IE to keep working that way, to keep working on their page. And the time that they've spent doing that, of course, is unfortunate, but once they get that working, they expect the page to keep working in IE. And that's been our challenge, is trying to balance those out, to come up with a good solution that allows people to say, hey, I really do know what I expect, and it's the standards behavior, and at the same time, not break websites or tools or systems that are out there today.
Absolutely.
We had some really powerful learnings during IE7. Right?
We had some extremely powerful learnings during
and
IE7.
you and I went back and forth a lot.
Yes, we did.
During IE7 around, well, we can't do nothing. We got to do something to get better.
Yes.
Right? And so there were some really straightforward ones that were a lot of fun. Alpha channel transparency, PNG.
That was pretty
good.
good.
And it's great because it seems like every other blog post, one of the comments is, when are you guys going to support this? And it's almost as if
Even
people
now, yes.
didn't really get the message. IE7 supports that.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some that really had, I'd say, no compatibility impact.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we now support this kind of PNG, or these attributes of a PNG. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were about 200 or so improvements we made to CSS behaviors.
Yep.
And how'd those turn out?
Well, some of them were pretty straightforward, pretty easy slam dunks, and some of those were, they were huge and great changes to make. They improved our standards compliancy, they improved the interoperability and just overall predictability of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was they were largely incompatible with what people expected us to do in their pages today, and that caused a lot of trouble. We had this concept first introduced by the Mac version of IE5 a very long time ago, called the Quirks mode and standards mode. So deciding which behavior to offer your page, to offer a web page based on whether or not they sort of knew what they were doing about doc types and standards. And the problem that we found is, when IE6 shipped, and we did use this flag in IE6 to switch behavior between more strict interpretation of standards and sort of quirkier, buggy implementation. When IE6 shipped, almost nobody was in standards mode. When IE7 shipped, by contrast, close to half of the web, at least in the US content, was already in standards mode. They're already saying, no, we expect standards, even though a lot of those pages were actually working around the problems and still expecting us to be broken. So unfortunately, for that large number of pages, we were still changing behavior on them. We were still causing problems in those pages. And we spent months and months running around to a bunch of different content vendors saying, hey, please fix up your page, you're expecting this behavior, it's broken. We built a bunch of tools to help people improve their content, catch these problems that were standards compliance improvements, but we're still causing behavior problems on some pages. And there were still, even after we shipped IE7, even now, we still get people who will complain about pages being broken in IE7, and a lot of times they don't even understand that they did that because, they're a web developer, but they use a framework. Mm-hmm. And that framework, somewhere buried in it, expected one behavior or another, or it worked around some IE6 problem. Mm-hmm. And that may not apply necessarily in IE7. You may not need to do that, or we may just implement the standard correctly and we look broken. Mm-hmm. Even though what we're doing, if we kind of spoofed one of the other browsers that had the proper behavior in there, mm-hmm. then it would actually work properly.
So I just want to go back to that one. So you're saying that if you take IE7, but you change the user agent string and you faked it, so you handed IE7 the content intended for a non-IE browser, it would actually look better in IE7 than the content the site happens to be handing IE.
Expecting it to be IE6, yes.
Right. So look, interoperability, really important. Standards, really important. Wow, the real world web, the way it works right now. Mm-hmm. Like, Chris wants to go and pay some bills, or, you want to go and get something done on the web. The reality on the ground, mm-hmm. and balancing compatibility with this, improved standards compliance, and right, that's the hard trade-off. Mm-hmm. And as I said, look, for all this context and for all these things that we're saying, the important thing is that last week, of all these really hard compliance tests out there, we now successfully render this Asset 2 page. And maybe we can get off this couch and walk down the hallway.
I think that's great.
I think there are a couple of developers who spent a lot of time on this. We should just go see it in action.
Let's go check them out. I'll just leave this running.
All right.
All right, Charles, does Channel 9 have a theme song that you're going to be humming as you walk through the halls?
No. Yeah, that's a great idea, though.
So I'll narrate. You just look on Chris just before people get seasick. So we're passing 6th Avenue.
Okay.
There's a tester of the dog. 7th Avenue. So the building, when we moved here a couple of months ago, people were getting disoriented, couldn't really figure out whose office was where, so someone
came up with this great idea.
Yeah, so we've got
Alien and 7th.
So all of these guys are named after movies. So you got Alien, Contact, you can see E.T. and Ghostbusters.
I'm at 8th and Contact, in case you're wondering where my office is.
Nice, 8th and Contact. Cool. That's a brilliant idea, actually. It's hard to find things around here. In all buildings.
This one in particular, the layout's a little
So are the devs like in Ghostbusters and or no, Hacker Street?
There's Ghostbusters, Hackers, and Indiana Street. Kind of an outlier, but I think we're down on Ghostbusters Street.
I'll show you.
Notice, all hard at work.
Are we there yet?
We're almost there.
Man,
Are we there yet?
Where are these devs? Waiting out on 9th Ave.
We're there.
All right, we finally made it to the developer's office.
Yeah, so this is one of our developers. This is Alex Mogilevsky.
How you doing?
One of the core devs trying to get this stuff done. This is Marcus Mielke, who's been the program manager, really driving our CSS work in particular.
Absolutely, we've had him on before.
We have.
Excellent.
Pleasure to be back.
Absolutely. So what's going on? There's that smiley face, but so a lot of work went to make this happen. Let's talk a little bit about that.
A lot of work went to make that happen. I think, Alex, why don't you sit down and walk us through what you've got on your screen, and then we'll talk about the journey there.
Okay, this is the window in the bottom is a